Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Melanated Midlife Podcast, where this episode we are talking to Dr. Marcie Strahan. Dr. Strahan is a very dear friend of mine, and she is a self-care specialist. She's not going to talk to you about spending a bunch of money on products and checking into a 5-star hotel. Instead, she's going to give you tips about how to center your well-being on a small but daily and impactful basis. So let us know if any of these tips work. We definitely want to make sure that in your midlife, you also are centering your self-care. So check it out. Dr. Marcie Strahan, you are here with us today on the Melanated Midlife Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we kind of needed you here. You are my self-care expert. So all the things that people like me, other midlife women, we need to hear your message about how to take care of ourselves and some very simple tips about how to make things a little bit more self-centered, and I mean that in a very loving way, self-centered and selfish in this season of life. So for anybody that hasn't met you, hasn't looked up all of your information, tell them a little bit about your background.
Okay, so just a little bit about my background. This is my 30th year in education. I'm a lifelong, will always be, lifelong educator. Served in various capacities, teacher, coach, counselor, assistant principal, and now I'm into district administration. And the department that I lead is wonderful. Everything just ties together, personal life and then work life, because in my work life, I'm able to work with our students and staff and just teach everybody to take care of themselves, self-care, breathe, and all those things, social-emotional learning. And so that's always been a passion of mine. The other thing is I'm always doing something. So told you about the work life, but then I'm very active in my sorority and almost any and every other organization that I take part in, I end up being in a leadership role. So multitasking, doing all the things for other people, but at the same time still trying to prioritize my own self-care.
Yeah, and you know, I'm listening to you say that, and I would immediately say, "Oh my God, you're taking on a lot." I mean, is there any part of that, you know? And you kind of, you know, breezing through that, you know, educator, counselor, district administrator. That's a lot,
Right?
And I feel like that story is so common for us, and we walk into things. We know how to take charge. We know how to, you know, be that comfort for somebody else. We know how to kind of organize and everything. But, I mean, is there danger in doing all of that?
It's definitely danger in doing all of that, especially if you don't prioritize self-care. Because I'm not going to say that every day is easy, because it definitely is not, because you're always juggling so many things. And the way I lead and the way I work, I'm always taking care of others. Like, that's just how I start. It's kind of like servant leadership or what have you. But within that, even though you're busy taking care of everyone else, making sure everybody else is good, you've got to make sure you're doing something for yourself too.
Yeah, and you talk about both working with the students and with the staff. And I think I want to make everybody understand that in this type of role, as you know, we're educators, but there's so many different people that you're serving. So that element of students and staff. The staff, I remember, because we come from the same place.
Right.
And so I remember when different natural disasters came through the area, you know, hey, Houston, you know, I tell everybody, you drop a slushie on the sidewalk and it floods here, you know, so we have to be prepared for anything. But there were moments where we had different natural disasters, and the adults in the room were just as shaken as the kids, you know. And what are the types of things that you come in crisis situations and do to try to make people more centered in
So
things?
Specifically speaking about the pandemic, because I still remember that, because I was leading a campus during that time. And so we were trying to make sure everything was in place for our students to be comfortable and for students to come back. And I was like, but wait, we have staff members. Are they okay? You know, because we had gotten used to doing the online learning thing, doing it from home. But now we are coming back into the real world. Some people had not left the house at all during that time, and it was scary.
Yeah.
But here I am now having you come back into the campus building, you know, your classroom, but then also now you're welcoming students back in there, and you've got to be comfortable, you know, with yourself in it. So just making sure there were things put in place, even for the staff, as we're preparing for the students and just realizing that in all of it, we're all human. We had never gone through that before. So
Never.
there was not a blueprint. You were just figuring it out as you went along.
Yeah.
And so even with that, and that's kind of the formation of my department during that pandemic time, is you started realizing that people had certain triggers. So business as usual couldn't be just business as usual because you didn't know what was going to set someone off. And then you're going to have a whole different experience that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just the everyday.
And that's something I think that we may not, but maybe we do, but that when we talk about students that have I'm sounding really callous here. Students that are struggling with certain things, and we do what we have to in K-12 education to make the environment, manageable for them.
Right.
But then we forget that those 12-year-olds, those 7-year-olds, they grow up into adulthood, and those challenges don't necessarily go away.
Right.
So the triggers, the experiences or whatever, the other humans in the room, the grown-ups, the midlife black women that come in and take charge, we have to remember that, there's everybody is dealing with something.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Okay. Now, I want to touch on something that might be a little bit controversial because in that environment, and we're all speaking from experience with educators, there is a spirit of altruism where you're putting everybody first. You are taking care of the room full of people, whether it's adults or students, and we put ourselves pretty low on that list, if on the list at all.
Right.
But how is your work changing that? What are you doing to try to combat that?
My biggest thing is just I am trying to share the message that we can't continue doing that. I hate to give it away, but it is the thing that is most mind-boggling. So anytime I get to speak to a group of people, I always open with one particular activity, and it's never failed me yet. And in that activity, I ask everyone to take out a piece of paper, and the instructions are to simply write down 10 of the most important people in their life. Give them some time, let them write it, let them write it, let them write it. Then at the end of that, I say, if you put your own name on your list, stand up.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. Because we don't put our own self on our list.
You got me there. You got me there. Okay. And first of all, when you started, I didn't think you were going to say people. I thought you were going to say, what are the things you need to accomplish or what are your goals? And okay, keep going. I'm sorry. I'm into this.
And the first time I did it, it got me. I didn't put myself on the list. I had everybody else, friends, family, co-workers, everybody else was on the list, but not myself. I did it with my husband. Yeah, that didn't go very well.
Okay.
He didn't put himself on the list either. So, had to calm him down after that particular activity. But I still use it because it's still the same. And this is with everybody, educators, just anybody that's in that room. We don't put ourselves on the list.
And, there's... I'm starting to feel for that person. I mean, and I probably would be that exact situation. I would think of my kids. I would think of the hubby. I would think of, all the other folks that are in my family circle. But no, I wouldn't put myself on that list. Oh, Lord, okay.
And what that goes into is when I start talking about self-care, I tell people you have to be intentional about self-care. Because just like we don't put ourselves on the list, self-care, if we don't put it on our calendar, if we're not intentional about it, that's the first thing that's going to go away that, when you get stressed with the job, family, life, whatever it is, that self-care piece is going to be on the back burner.
Yeah.
And it can't be. It has to be just as important as anything else was on your calendar.
Okay, so, thinking about the audience that is here with Melanated Midlife, and the experience are probably very much shared, like what you mentioned. We walk into a space, we kind of handle things because we've had all that life experience.
Right.
We've raised the kids, we've taught the kids, we've probably nurtured one or two marriages, who knows by now. And then, you probably need someone to sit you down and say, okay, here's how you can be intentional. So what are some of the tips that you would give those of us that are in midlife right now, how to be more intentional with self-care?
So the first thing, of course, is to calendar it. So just like you would a meeting, a doctor's appointment, kids' games, anything like that, you've got to put it on your calendar. The other thing is self-care is personal. That journey is personal. So just because you see somebody else does a spa day or massages or something like that, and that is what they consider self-care, you have to understand and be okay with that not necessarily being what works for you. So for me personally, spa day is not it. Cleaning out the closet is not it. That's going to trigger and be more stressful for me than it would be relaxing. So you have to kind of play around with it a little bit so you find out what is the best option for you and what do you need in certain situations. Another thing that I always say too is you've got to be, real with yourself, and you've got to check in. So you've got to realize when, oh, you know what? Hey, I need to stop. Pause. I need to figure out what is it that I need to do for me to recharge. And that, for me, that is what self-care is all about. It's just making sure you're recharging so you can be the best version of yourself to do all those other things that you're going to have to do anyway.
Oh, you know what? When you mentioned spa day, that is how I think I first saw the self-care. It was kind of commercialized a little bit,
Definitely.
because you would see the ads come up like, come and, bathe yourself in shea butter or whatever. I sound ridiculous, but come and do all of these beauty related things. And, that would be your checking self-care off the list. But you're right. I mean, if I had to schedule in a spa day, it sounds cool, but it's going to cost me couple $100s, and I'm saying couple. Who am I kidding? It's going to cost several $100s.
Right.
It's going to take time away from me. It's going to be something that I have to find space in my calendar to do, which is also going to be stressful. So I get that. I get that.
So things that I do, I can't say it's self-care, but things that I do, I love outdoors. So I make sure my home space outside is enjoyable because I can't afford to just go on a trip and stop, drop things all the time. So around the house, like where can I find peace? I like water.
Ooh, tell me about that. Yeah. Going into the house. Where,
even in the house.
How are you doing that?
So I have a room. I call it my Peloton room, but the Peloton is just a staple in there because I don't actually get on it. But I try to make sure that particular room.
I'm sorry. Okay,
it is the Peloton room.
She bought the Peloton.
I did.
Yeah, so the Peloton is in place and ready.
It is in place, ready. Have all the things, accessories. It's all right there. Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna come back to that in another episode.
Yes, because that is taking care of yourself. That's the physical part of self-care. So it's there.
Okay.
But in that room, that's usually the room that I keep the cleanest. Because that is my Zen area.
Okay.
So I have the LED lights and the aromatherapy kind of things are in there. So it's just my space at the house where I can just relax.
Yeah.
I can go in there in the mornings before I start my normal routine to get ready for work. If I want to journal or do different things, just check out what is my plan for today. I can do it in that space.
I like that. And then if I'm just, like you said, going in there in the mornings, because I see that as being a really good thing for me to start the day, being intentional with, that peaceful piece. But how much time is that taking off your calendar?
It doesn't, because you are intentionally setting up your day for success. So you have to think about it in that aspect. It's not that you're giving up time. It is making time so you can do all the things that you need to do.
Okay.
I haven't perfected it. So I will be honest and say that this is something that I've been working on, but I'm able to get up just a few minutes earlier and just refresh, because otherwise I roll over and I'm getting on social media and scrolling. I'm losing time doing that because that's not really helping me be most productive for the day. But if I'm intentional, I do my journal reading. If I want to do meditation, look at the Bible, those things, I set that time aside in the mornings to do that.
I like that. Well, and tell me a little bit more about ways that we can do this. I mean, that's in the home, so I see that. And you say being out in nature. What is being out in nature doing for us?
So for me, being out in nature, it just gives me an opportunity to breathe. That air is fresh air. It's not, anything else going on with it. You get to appreciate nature. When you truly just stop and slow down as you're walking from one spot to the next, you pay attention to the sounds that you're hearing, the smells, even conversations as you're passing by people. It just gives you a moment to just slow down just a little bit.
And see, I like that because you're away from screens as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I've also noticed too is driving around. I've found myself several times driving around with no radio on. No audio, no audible, just silence. And before I know it, I've driven around for an hour, 2 hours with no side noise.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. Okay, and I'm putting all of this mentally on my own calendar. You know, a space in the house, going outside in nature, and then what else?
So then the what else? And I'll tell you, another one is being organized. So if you know you're going to best set yourself up for success for the week by knowing which are your heavier days. How are you going to time block? You know, you need to get this done. It's going to take you about 30 minutes. It's going to take you about an hour, even putting that into your schedule. For me, that's a major part of my own self-care.
Okay, time blocking. Explain that for anybody that's never heard of it.
So for time blocking, there are certain tasks that you know you need to do. So I'll speak in the educator world. So I have a couple of positions that I need to fill. So in order to do that, I need time to go over the resumes. I need time to schedule phone screenings. So I'll just block off time during the day, just like you would a meeting. You block off that time to get that particular task done. Because if you don't, you end up hopping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then at the end of the day, if you were to ask yourself, hey, what did I get done today? You don't know.
Yeah, and this is something that I've struggled with, having all the things open on the screens. You know, here I am talking about screens again, having 25 tabs open. And I think I'm really
doing it,
being productive. And an hour will go by, and I'm still staring at the same 25 tabs that are open. And so when I've done the time blocking for me, and I'm somebody that struggles with the focus, you know, when I say, okay, I've got these 5 things that I need to be done with by 12. And I've started to restrict myself on one tab. Get the one tab open, do that one thing, close it out, check it off the list.
Right.
And when I work with coaching clients, that is something that I've told them, that there is something in the physical act of crossing something off the list. And I don't know, am I crazy, or is that a thing?
That is definitely a thing. That is definitely a thing. A check, a mark, or something. Yes, yes. The different highlighter, all of it. Now, the only thing I'll add to that is, if you are not successful, a part of self-care, is giving yourself grace and being okay with not finishing it. Move it to the next day. It's okay.
Okay, because if I'm the, get stuff done kind of gal,
correct,
then I could look at that list at 5 o'clock and say, I wasted a day. I'm a failure. I didn't do what I was supposed to do, or I didn't come through for the people that I was supposed to come through for, especially as educators.
Right.
Ooh, okay. I'm having that moment to see. I'm putting all of what you're saying into my own routine, and I see that over and over again. And yeah, it is defeating to say that I didn't do it. I didn't come through.
Correct.
Ooh, okay.
And that has become a biggie because, and this has nothing to do with work or anything, but it's all part of that self-care journey and being okay with just whatever happens, right? A friend of mine, we went back and forth for like 10 minutes because we were invited to a party, but we didn't want to go. Back and forth for 10 minutes. How would this person feel if we don't show up? Does this person even really know us? Because in the whole scheme of things, it was a party that a friend of ours was holding for one of her friends. And at the end of the 10 minutes, back and forth, we made ourselves okay with saying no. It took a long time to get there.
Yeah.
But the lesson was learned after the fact. Put yourself first. If you don't want to go, don't go.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
Life is still going to continue. We're still going to be friends with who we're friends with. It's okay.
Because, see, that word, no, it has a lot of weight. And I don't think, I talk about exercising that muscle.
Right.
It's not easy the first time that you set that boundary. Well, and that's not even necessarily a boundary situation that you gave. That's just I can't do it this time.
Right.
But I know that there have been times where I hear people say, okay, I'm going to tell this story to justify my no.
Right.
Or I'm going to tell them this is more important, a bigger priority, so therefore I'm saying no. And that...
It's just no.
It's just no. Is a full sentence.
It's a full sentence. It's okay. No.
See there.
Because you stress yourself out trying to be everything and everywhere for everybody, and then you lose. So how is that helping?
Yeah.
So in that particular moment, for that particular occasion, it was just no.
And then what happened on the other side of no?
We're fine.
We're fine. We still friends.
We're still friends. It's
still
okay.
Friends. Yeah. There will be, hopefully, there will be other times when you can
Yes.
come through for whatever event.
And then if not, that's okay too.
That's okay.
Because that's not, at that particular point in time, you did what you needed to do for yourself.
Exactly. Oh man, see, I feel like that right there, that's something that not enough of us really are understanding. You know, if I say no, they won't like me.
Right.
If I say no, I'm letting someone down.
Right.
If I say no, I'm the bad guy. And all of those stories are in our heads.
Yes.
But the reality, like you say, on the other side of no, that's it.
It's just no.
And there's still oxygen on the other side of that no.
Right.
So, yeah. Oh.
Because in this particular situation, it didn't come back up again. It's not like it was a long discussion or, hey, we really it was just.
That was it.
It was it.
And to release yourself of the guilt, release yourself from the obligation, because that, you know, you're this is the other thing that I'm hearing now, where people say that you're making yourself the villain in the story, and maybe it's not that.
Maybe it's not. You're getting in the way of yourself. Like, it's just not necessary.
Okay. Coach me through this, honey, because, you know, I'm still learning. I'm getting better.
Yes.
But I will tell you that I was in an event very recently, just within the last few weeks, with some other ladies, some professionals that, I mean, we're truly rocking it. You know, I'm bowing down to these ladies because they had business going. They had, you know, all operations around, you know, them and whatever they offer. And we got into just a closed door conversation about, you know, hey, how do you manage this? How do you manage that? And the stories that poured out of them were like, oh, I get 3 hours of sleep at night. Or sometimes I don't get to eat. Or I had to show up, you know, to this event and I was sick, not feeling well or whatever.
Right.
I was shocked.
Right.
You know, that women that are performing at the highest level are still having to figure out this self-care thing, this setting boundaries. I mean, what do we say to those ladies?
Now I'm torn. So now you have me challenged. Because even in the world that I speak about self-care and all those things, I do know that there are some times where you're going to have to push. You're going to have to do that extra. But my thing is, you just have to be intentional about taking care of yourself. So it may not be every time, but as long as you're putting in more of those times where you're taking care of yourself. But it's sometimes as simple as just sitting back, being still, and maybe you've got to rethink how you're doing the business. Like rethink of, you know, are you getting the most out of your scheduling? Are you getting the most out of your goal setting? Do you need to kind of just change up what that system is? Because in some cases, maybe that is what it is.
I like that. Yeah.
Or it could just be that season. Because, you know, sometimes you have busy seasons where it's going to be hard, and then you get a break. But it's just taking the time to evaluate.
You know, you bring up a good point that there are hustle seasons. You know, and that's the other piece. I'm hearing, and I'm going to sound like an old jaded lady, but I hear the younger folks saying, you know what, it's about me, you know, and good, girl, that's what you need to be thinking. But the other part of that story is that you do have hustle times, and then on the other side, the downside of hustle time, you rest.
Right.
And that's the other piece, I think, that is not happening enough, is being intentional with your rest, your sleep.
Right. And that's all it is. That's all it is. Just being more intentional.
Yeah. Where does this fall, self-care, on the spectrum of mental health? You know, we have some people that are listening to this and say, oh, I need to talk to a self-care specialist. Let me call Dr. Strahan. Yeah, you can call Dr. Strahan. But, you know, where does is there an end? Is there a boundary between self-care and then eventually seeking a medical professional for support?
To be honest, I think it all works together because part of self-care, again, is taking care of yourself. So within that, it is making the appointments. So doing your physical every year. It is about doing the mammogram. It is about if you need to talk to someone, or maybe you don't need to, but it's that time in your life where that's good. That's a strength to have in your back pocket. Then go ahead and make the appointment. That is still putting yourself first, doing those things that you need to do to make sure you are maintaining your health and not in mental stability and all of that. Because otherwise, you're going to get to a point where it's an emergency situation and a crisis situation, and ultimately you're going to end up needing the help and support anyway. So why not be proactive and just do it in the beginning?
Yeah. I will tell you that I hear these conversations over and over again, and I don't know if it's COVID, the pandemic, that forced us into this space of needing to be intentional with self-care, or as a society, are we missing some things? Where could we make some real changes globally as far as self-care is concerned?
I think it's starting to happen in my realm, because I'm thinking of education and things that we have set up on our campuses now. And there are more and more just wellness rooms for both students and adults. I think that's a piece of it. The mental health days that are just kind of built in, and the acceptance of, if you need the day, take the day. It's necessary. Yeah. It just really is necessary. Because my thing is, I want to be proactive. I want to do the things that I need to do so I can be there and be there for the grind. Because it's going to, you need to be fully present when you're at work. So if that means I've gotten to a point where, you know what, I've got to take just one day. Just give me this one day. If I'm going to make some appointments, fine. If I'm not, if I'm just at home sleeping in, then let me do that so I can bring my best self forward. And I think we're more accepting of that. Now, of course, it gets into a panic, especially in education. You're talking about taking a day, because that means that you're going to need subs and all of that. But in the long run, that's going to help. Because if you don't, you're going to have a teacher or a staff member in front of kids. That's not good for kids.
I had that visual in my mind about, someone who is struggling, or someone who truly just needs a break.
Right.
And, to be in a situation. I'll always use the scenario of, if you have a surgeon that is coming in to perform whatever procedure on you, do you want that person at the end of their rope? Or do you want that to be a person that's taken some time to rest and, be their best self, be their healthiest version of themselves, and come in and then perform the task for you? So I don't know. It's a thing, because when you said that we have to be understanding about it, it means that we're taking care of ourselves, number one, but then we are kind of looking out for our brother or sister, and recognizing signs that we might be pushing folks too much, in addition to seeing them push themselves.
Definitely.
Yeah. But you doing this perfectly yourself?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh,
no.
Excuse me, Dr. Strahan.
No, not at all. Because it's an ongoing journey, and that's the part about it. I don't profess to be the expert, meaning I've got it all right. Because no, I don't. Like there are times when I have to revisit. Each Saturday on my Twitter account or what have you, I just happen to send out Self-Care Saturday posts. Sometimes those Self-Care Saturday posts are conversations to myself.
Yeah.
Two with, yes, it's for me. Because I don't know that you can get perfect at it. It's going to just ever evolve in how you're doing things. But I try to be intentional for myself to make sure I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're taking lessons, but what other resources do you have for us that we could, pull into our awareness, something that we could start doing right now, or pulling from you specifically?
So I have put together a it started with Self-Care for Educators workbook. And then I've realized that there are people outside of education that also need the help. So I've done a second one that anyone can use. But it just walks you through teaching yourself about the 6 different types of self-care, just so you know that there's more than just the spa day. It doesn't just stop right there. So it just gives you a little bit of background on what could be considered self-care, and then it gives some practical, like just things to work on, books to read, or whatever the case may be. But then it also is a 52-week plan where you are
Okay.
crafting out what your self-care is, because again, it's personal, so I can't tell you do this and this is going to make you perfect. No, it's not going to be the case. But you can plan out what your self-care is, and then it gives you an opportunity at the end of the week to reflect on how well you did.
Grade yourself.
Uh-huh. And that way you put that into effect for the next week, and you
like
just keep
that.
going.
Okay, so 52 weeks, I'm basically making this personal for me. And if a spa, and I'm thinking a spa day schedule-wise is not going to work out, but budget-wise, that might not work out. So an easy way for me to schedule it in, go back, grade myself at the end of that week, and then over the course of the year,
Right.
I'm able to see, okay, did this work? Am I in a better place? Do I need to continue or try something different? Or maybe my situation is more severe
Right.
and I need to seek professional support.
Correct.
Okay.
And
all right.
it covers like a full gamut of things. So it could be budgeting. So there's like a little budget worksheet in there. It could be making sure you're doing your diet the way you should, drinking your water, your exercise. That's in there. It could be affirmations. Just how are you talking to yourself? Because some of it is our own negative self-talk that gets us down. So
We do that.
just affirmations that you could write down and follow. So it's just different examples like that throughout the workbook.
Ooh, okay. And where can we find that workbook?
That is located on Amazon.
Okay. So Amazon shop for Dr. Strahan.
Yes.
What else can we get from you? Where can we find more information and resources about you?
Could definitely follow me on Twitter. Most of it is that's what I consider my professional, or X, it's not Twitter, but that's my professional realm. So you'll see me, of course, talking about education, but I do the self-care post on Saturdays and just things that come across. I use it for networking. I learned all kind of good things. Some things not, but you know, it's just wide open. And then also I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's under Dr. Marcie Strahan.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Strahan, you will have some information that we're going to put in the show notes. So, if people want to reach out to you, maybe directly to work with you or to maybe for you to speak at their events, we're going to put all of that in the show notes so that you can get in contact with Dr. Strahan. But more than anything, we're going to have to keep working on this. So,
Yes.
I appreciate you being here, ma'am, and keep doing the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for having me and just being you. Thank you for providing this platform for all the different topics that you cover. It's wonderful.
And you know what? I didn't tell everybody before we close it out that you know, don't nobody come on this show and there's total strangers.
Right.
You know, we do have a history. We've worked together. We've been in the same school organization, but then we also became doctors together.
Yes, we did.
So we had the shirt, the did we say finished?
Finish ED.
Finished
Finish
ED.
ED.
Yeah, but we were the what were we? The divas. Shoot.
Divas with doctorates.
Divas
now.
with doctorates.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess at some point I'm going to have to put this picture on here of us, you know,
Yes.
posing and doing our thing. But yes, thank you for being here, Dr. Strahan. Always, you are welcome to come back.
Thank you. Thank you
right.
so much.